So we're going to discuss how design works. This is anecdotal again, and I'm going to use 3 examples. And this does involve just what Hugh asked. I was actually already in the door. A tour manager asked me if I'd like to design for Keith Urban, who's a rock guitarist from Australia who actually, I can't really call him country, but if that's what he says he is, he is. So I asked the stupid question, what do you want? Keith said, I want a big rock. That's the general notion. That's the concept idea. Unfortunately, the manager, who tends to feel he's a little on the creative side, just threw in out of the air nothing but, oh yeah, with some iron running through it. He actually was poetic at that point. He said, you know, rock for strength, and also rock for perpetuity and iron for strength. Okay. The rock was easy, actually. As I say, I wish I'd never asked. The rock was easy. I just looked through the internet, looking at endless amounts of photographs until one I came to, and I judged it as being okay for the rock. Why did I choose this particular rock? It's easy. It has a flat top. It's almost smooth. I've already decided how I'm going to build the rock. I'm going to use polystyrene. I'm going to carve it with chainsaws. We'll get to that moment now. The iron was a real problem. I tried this. Big iron girder running through rock, no. Another big iron girder, all bent and buckle running through rock, no. No. And then I started looking through the internet again for, you know, iron and iron foundries and all sorts. And then I discovered this little bridge. This is in, I think it's in the south of France, or is it in Norway? But Monet painted this bridge, which really was how I got to it. And I looked at that and I thought, that is just beautiful. Do I have a love affair with curves? Look at that. That is just beautiful. That was it. All I had to do was this CAD drawing, and I sent it off to the structuralist, who had already been chosen for me by the production manager. Yeah, that's another story. So anyway, the sides indicate the whole opening is already built. The curve is dictated by the rental truss that is going to support on 2 cords of rental truss. The decking is decking. Handrails have to go on. We never used them, but I had to put them in the design because that's an OSHA thing. It's a safety thing. If they chose to not use the handrails, that's their call. But the handrails were there. That's, you know, the liability thing. And I didn't draw, this was never used. This was my explanation. All the drawings further from this came from the fabricator, the aluminum company. And that's hung on a regular truss. And the black truss at the top's just way out, and it's hung on steel, 1-ton steel cables. Pretty standard stuff. All the rigging was from a rigging company and variations of it. Okay, the model was really important here because I'm now going to carve something out of polystyrene foam. So I had to have a model for the sculptors. This is really interesting. So here I am in my little workshop here with all my other little toys. Oh, N-scale model roller, plaster, molds. But I've made these out of a regular 110-pound card. I print it up on my printer with all sides, and I add on little glue tabs, and I just cut it out with my scalpel, score the corners on the edges here. They're just half cut so they snap and make a nice fold. You did all this at school, I hope. The stairs were slightly different. That was actually 1 piece of cardboard. That was difficult, but because you have to print the cut lines on 2 sides. Actually, what I used was to make the steps. That's a score, and that is also a score. To see the underside score, I put it on a light table, and I turned the whole thing over, put it on a light table, and I could see my drawing through that, and that's how I actually managed to do that. So anyway, the model was important, but it also gave me, once I laid it out, this is what came of it, a 2-dimensional plan of all the elevations of all the risers. Now we're going to go back to the 8x4. That's an 8x4. That's an 8x8, two 8x4s. This is a scenery dolly. That carts. These are carts. These are all rental. The only thing we had to build was this, the stairs, and that little spacer bridge. I'll show you the actual stuff. We used 2 workshops here. This is pristine and crystal, clean. Exactly how a welding shop should be. We had to build these stairs, but we sold them back to the company afterwards because they put them on their inventory. Stock. This is stock. This is the scenery riser, the dolly riser with all the scenery and set pieces all fold down and go into. So instead of taking all of our equipment on stage in this item and that item, and then taking them off and storing it, we left them on stage and just made sure the deck was there. We had little steps up there. This just dropped in between this riser, this dolly and this dolly, so that was a simple thing. This is the center stage doorway. We're coming into that. So this is the stage right side. And stage left side, this is the layout. Here it is. Here's the truss in the position the bridge is going to be. And then here was the keyboard riser and so on. So this is just getting mocked up and laid out. Meanwhile, I'm back in my shop making a mess of my model because I'm starting to use plaster. I actually scrapped that model and went back to just nothing but foam. And the end of the model is this. Drums, access, walkway, steps, access across the top of those scenery dollies. There's the bridge right there, across here. And this is the bridge. It could articulate. It was actually on a traveler, an I-beam traveler. And it could crawl along the traveler, bringing the bridge forwards, downstage. It also, because it's hung on motors, it could kneel. And this is in its upright position. It would kneel. Mr. Urban would come on here, step onto this. The whole thing would then raise up, track forwards. He's in a harness, and he's on yo-yo wires. There's a dolly upstairs on a long track, and he'd just walk off the edge and sail right across the edge of the heads of the audience to the B stage where he plays 6 acoustic songs on his own, right out by the mixer. That's a big thing. The dolly was worth it. Also on the dolly I had 4 really big moving lights that actually lit and traveled with him as he flew across the audience. Anyway, let's get back to construction. So this is the final model. You see I've printed actually the details on the little piece of paper just to show footage and things. There's always some technical person involved in these things at this stage. This is all styrofoam, and it's just carved. And now this is a completely different workshop. This is Aladdin's Cave. This is Sherby Green Enterprises in Nashville. Now, this is just one guy in Nashville. In Los Angeles area, you've got the whole film industry of endless workshops. Nothing gets thrown away. It all gets stored. Big stuff on the back lot, but they've got workshops. Here's a wishing well made out of styrofoam. These are all flat panels. These are just stuff, junk, all over. But this is the material that I'm going to use. It's just polystyrene. It comes in 3 by 2 foot cubes, and it's quite thick, 18 inches thick. And then it's just stuck up against the risers, and then it's carved with chainsaws, which go blunt very quickly, funnily enough. And there's the model. There's the model. It's always in these pictures because they refer to it. These are the stairs. Here's the luang cladding, and they're going to stick the styrofoam to it, and then they'll carve it. This is all rental stock coming in from the previous workshop, and it's on little dollies. But yeah, meanwhile, they're making it happen. Here's a big slab that's getting carved. It's a messy business. Anyway, lots of this. Meanwhile, while all that's going on and all the welding's going on, I've got a lighting company here, Bandit, I believe. This is their drawing. All they did was take my drawing and reproduce it and put all their notes and legends and so on in there, and their logo. And it says down there, designed by, drawn by, and there's an engineer's approval on there. There goes my liability. I still get sued if something happened, but I could walk away quicker than everybody else. So in the rear, this is kind of a variation on a kind of style I like. It's simple. This is a straight rear truss that hanging from there, video screens and a custom-built star cloth. He had a monkey logo, and we had to build it in stars. Otherwise, it would have been a rental star cloth. These are vertical tormentors. These are short because they're in the middle, and the risers all across here. Our scenery, no point in putting truss down below. And those are just little dazzle lights, and that fills in the whole space. More moving lights, aircraft landing lights. Yep, middle truss, that's very practical. This actually, this whole row of bars here is about lighting the musicians in this area. See, here's the truss for the bridge. Underneath that is the bridge, the structure. That's its support truss. It's also a cableway to get electric from, all our cables came from this area, along this truss, over this truss that supports the bridge and the cables, and from there on it's all airborne. A little consideration is cable, there's a lot of it. These are side trusses, good position, great position actually, here and here. And then these are actually vertical and they're right under that point and they go straight down. On here I've got strips of aircraft of mulface for audience blinders. I don't particularly like those 8 flags, you know, the little, you've seen them, 2 strips of 4. I particularly like a straight line. It's more architectural, it frames, and it's different. If you can be different, because everybody in the audience has seen an 8-light flag, borrowed from the film industry. So those are the flags right there. Those are the flags right there, and more lights, and I don't know where those were. Oh yeah, no, that's the vertical right there. And this actually came on. There are, you see, those are the mulface strips, and there's some here too. So it actually ended up making a frame, which I thought was good. This is a circle with versatubes, architectural strip lights, DMX controlled. So I had an idea, and I never explained to him. I kind of like the idea of carnivals. They're always lit up well. So this was my Ferris wheel. And this slab here was just power lamps, very narrow beams, some moving lights around it, and it just sat there. And here's the yo-yo track. This is a dolly that was variable in length depending on how sized the room was. But it went from one end to the center, just beyond the center of the ice. So that's about anything up to 200 feet, usually about 120, 150. And there's the little dolly with the lights that travel with him. Let's move on. So there's the Ferris wheel, and that's the Versatube, and it did all, you know, nice, clever patterns. We used it once or twice. Where do we go? Am I go for? Oh, okay. There's the slab of light. This came down, down, down. It got really hot. He did one. This is specific. It was designed for one moment. It then joined in with the rest, but not much. It came down. It got to about here, about 8 feet off the deck, and then it swung in and it focused at him, and he's standing on a metal grid, and underneath there are 6 very powerful strobes, and they are firing in a sequence, and this thing just comes on down, and then there's a lot of wind, and it's kind of cool actually. The wind was there to animate himself and his clothes, and the strobes dealt with that, but this was just the only light that was on there. This is actually coming down because these moving lights here were doing a little ballyhoo around, and they went out when this came on. That was a very, very big moment. Design big moments. Put those in first. Those two, the circle and the square, were the 2 first things I put in there. I've got a question over here.
Sir. So this moment, was this part of your initial pitch? Or
No,
did
this
come after?
This came after. So what are you going to do? Describe your set list to me. Oh yeah, well here I normally do this. Oh great. How about you do this there on this grill, and I'll do something sensational here. Oh, great, and that was it. That was literally the conversation. And this is what it was. And I said, okay, we're going to do this. I just want to warn you, it's going to get filthy hot, really hot. You know, what's that, 18 kilowatts of heating there. A power lamp's 20% efficient. That means 80% of the power light is heat. That's a lot of heat. Anyway, it was only for one song, and it really looked good. He's a rocker. Why keep going back to that? Oh, okay. So that was that section. We've seen that section. And here is Mr. Urban flying from that bridge. He just steps off into the air. And it was kind of clever. All this is a span set, you know, one of those rigging strops. And he just put his foot in it and stood in it. This is another little short 1-foot span set. And he put his arm through. We were going to have him on safety wires. He said, no, I can get that. And he just, okay, you said it. Let me get a witness. So he just stepped into it, and this could a yo-yo. It goes up and it goes down. We took him up once, and he said, oh, no, that's way too high. I said, but it's okay. My daughter tried it out before you did. So anyway, we kept him, but the trick was he just stepped off and it came down from when he stepped off his bridge at about, I suppose, it was about 16 feet off the actual deck, not the stage. And he came down and his feet were just above the tallest person's fingertips. And boy, they were jumping, standing on their chairs. He only lost one shoe on the whole tour. Yeah, that was it. So he just used to swing out there. This was a big wow moment. And then he got out to the front and he'd sit on this bar metal grating and look at these, MR16s. That was just to fill under his chin. There would be follow spots on here. This is in rehearsals. And you only get good photos. So this was all going on. And the band are actually not even on stage. And he's out there and he sings 6 songs on this 8x8 aluminum riser with some lights underneath. And mostly the dolly is still overhead. And that's where the big movers were. So the lighting rig for this actually came with him. And then he'd just step into his harness and cruise back. Without the guitar, he always left the guitar there, so he had this extra hand and he used to slap hands. And, yeah, he got real used to it. Got right into it. I keep going to this. I must have had something in mind referring back to this, but it's beyond me now. Okay, so there's some proof of the pudding. This is what I was trying to describe. These are the mole-face strips. And I've deliberately made it that shape because it's a frame and it just looks so much better in my opinion. And I believe my opinion. And here are the projection screens. That was a couple of months of content building. Usually what I do with content is I'll go through each song, think, oh, that'll be nice, that'll be nice, that'll be nice, and give these suggestions to somebody who we're going to employ. And they go away and start rummaging around, either making it. Usually it comes from stock. That's a big expense, stock, because you buy a license to use it for a period of time. And they judge how much you're going to spend on how much you're going to use. And they also figure into that how many people are going to see it. So it actually gets quite expensive, stock stuff. There's the little carousel. This got real high. These are up at about 50. That rear truss there is at 52 feet. Which is considered high. It determines what size light you're going to use, actually. Because an average moving light, let's say, I don't know, just a medium-sized light, you're not going to get much out of it after 24 feet. You need lights with zoom lenses to get up to 50. Aircraft landing lights do well up there. Okay, let's keep going. So back to construction. This is the aluminum siding that fits the stock truss. This is just the frame, the 2 sides. This workshop was uncannily clean. Here it is with the handrails, never used. Here it is coming up to finish. This is limestone, looking pretty good. In the center here, right there, is actually a secret door. It was, they had, here is the bridge siding. This is Luan, this is styrofoam. You can see over here they're actually cutting the second side, and it's one piece of styrofoam, and they just cut concentric circles out of them and stuck them on with glue. And then it's all hard shelled. Now hard shell is nothing more than that foam that you fill holes in walls with. You buy it at Home Depot in cans. Well, these guys get it in great big cylinders, and they have all this mechanism, like 2 cylinders of hardener. But what it does is it covers and coats the very soft styrofoam, which is granular, and it sets really quite hard. It's still somewhat fragile. You could punch it and leave a dent, but it smooths everything off, it glues everything together, and when it is just almost dry, just attached, tacky, you spray it with ordinary primer, and that's it primed. And then the painters in the shop made it rusty. This is my daughter. She was the one who test flew the yo-yo. This is the dog. He christened it. Yep, there he is, just about to give it a... See, these are little repairs, again with hard shell, and that gets painted out. We did this all in 6 weeks. It arrived in the studio wet. It was still drying. And here is all the stuff we did. There's the big thing, just about to descend. These are most probably rehearsal pictures. And there's his little monkey. And here it is in reality. There's the door. This is in the afternoon. This is red rock sandstone. This is Tennessee limestone. Well, styrofoam limestone. And in here was actually more than, there was a couple of other amplifiers. And the doorway itself was a fake front panel of a back line. And so we'd finish a song and he'd go to that moment of black, and then it'd start restoring blue, the eye's still adjusting, and he's disappeared completely through that center door. In fact, in here, one of the briefs was I had to build an 8 by 8 by 8 cubic room inside the riser. That determined the entire shape of the riser, of the set, because that's his guitar room, and that's where all the speakers are, that's where the real work is, and that's how he gets its sound, by enclosing it in this one space. So that was really determined how high this was going to be. And here's the bridge. And between the keyboard riser, there's a gap that this could drop down into, and that was also another good entrance. The band used to come on there with a blast of light behind them and all the silhouettes. You know, take every opportunity. You might as well use them. And this is high gain floor. It looks great. It shines well. You get a lot of depth from it. I'll show you other pictures where the reflection's great. The negative side is when you use follow spots, you get a big old bounce back up, and you get all this white marble kind of light. And especially if you use screenery and things like that, I tend to use, it can be a problem. It's a thing you just have to live with. Actually, they haven't put the screens up yet. And these are the vertical toms. And in here are also those little old Versa tubes. More lights up here. Ton of little egg strobes. You're welcome to them all. Okay, and here it is. That's a rain thing. And that's pretty much that. Okay, that's my first demonstration of how you put together a big production. But that's actually how you put together any production. And I didn't touch anything. I spoke a lot. I drew very little. I got a lot of other people to do all the drawings, for good reason. They can, they're most probably better, and it's their liability. What else did I do on that? 6 weeks, you do an awful lot. I used to get up early, and the thing was I went and inspected everything every day, and I never announced when I was going to be there. So first of all, you find out if they're working or working hard. But you just want to go and see the progress. It doesn't matter if it means anything. It just means you're on the case. It keeps your workers on the ball. That's why I never announced when I would have come. Usually it was about 7 or 8 in the morning.
When you were first starting, did you ever hang lights or build the full sets?
When I first started, there was no such thing as kind of truss. Truss to me was something cricketers wore in their trousers. But then I learned that truss is also what holds up roofs. And in about 1974-ish, beginning of the British invasion and the big super groups, truss became apparent then, lots of it. And that's about the time the power lamp came along, and thousands, I mean literally thousands of power lamps hung in trusses. Queen had a stage lighting rig, because it was just straight trusses, about 12 of them. And it was just slab of power lights, a slab of power lights. It was unbelievable, actually. But they couldn't do much with it because there was no variation. I mean, once you put it all on, what are you going to do next? Take it all off. Now you've got the blackout problem. So, and there was no automated light. So it was a big deal, but it was, yeah.